Hello and welcome back to Climate TBD, your podcast for everything sustainability. I'm Gemma, your producer, and today EcoReps Tyler, Kendall, and Katharine are joined by two representatives of the Ithaca College organization Open the Books, Sara Stohl and our very own Lauren Miller.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank
I
you.
am Lauren Miller. I'm also an EcoRep project coordinator, but also working in the Open the Books coalition at IC with Sara. I am a junior politics major with a concentration in international relations and minors in Spanish and Latin American studies, and I use she/her pronouns.
And I'm Sara Stohl. I'm an anthropology major and environmental studies minor. I work on Open the Books and have been a part of SLA since we started, which is Students for Labor Action. I should clarify, since we started Open the Books. And yeah, it's been really fun. And we're so excited to talk to you.
Well, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Sara. We're happy to have you. We're going to start out with a small question today. And the question that we have for you today is, how would you define sustainability, and how do you see on the books fitting within the idea of being sustainable?
I think sustainability for us is a lot about preserving the student experience at Ithaca, and so much of that has to do with the faculty, a lot of the faculty that are getting fired. I mean, we even have some in the ENVS, I mean, the anthro department is being switched into a program, and we don't know how sustainable that is. A lot of our discussions have been around, like, people are not concerned with Ithaca now. And we want to focus on Ithaca now, but we are also concerned with Ithaca forever, because we don't see the APP as something that's gonna ultimately benefit us in the future. I mean, all of these amazing professors are leaving. What's going to be left? Kids are not going to want to come here for the amazing professors because they're literally gone. So yeah, that's an interesting question. I like it.
Yeah, and I think just to jump in on that, I always think of sustainability as relating to all areas of life, not just our consumption of energy and resources and things that are more like planet centered, but very like personal manifestations of sustainability as well. And Open the Books fits right into this because, as Sara was saying, like there is discussion of Ithaca right now and what we need um, in terms of financial exigency, which is basically just a way of like saying that we are in a financial emergency in the college, or at least there is like a perceived financial emergency. I see this all through the lens of sustainability, because to me it seems that decisions were made that led us to a point where like we're coming to a point of financial emergency because decisions were made in the past that did not have like this greater sustainability in mind, or if they did, the wrong choices were made. And in terms of looking at how like Open the Books is trying to fight for this legacy of Ithaca, it's looking at Ithaca in the long term. And yes, maybe these cuts will save us some money and not even enough money in this current moment, but in what way, like, is that even like framing in terms of finances, in what way is that going to then impact really big contributors to our college, like donors and alumni and people who are donating specifically back to their programs? What is that going to look like if their entire major was cut, or if their favorite professor is now gone, or if maybe a club that they were invested in is no longer at Ithaca? How are we going to keep those people interested, but also looking at like how this impacts the greater like Tompkins County community as well, and how there's so many facets to this like seemingly simple and small decision. And of course, like no one's claiming that it's simple and no one's claiming that it's small, but I think, to me, I'm wondering how all of these things are taken into consideration, and then how what seems to me like I'm arriving at one very, very different decision after looking at all these factors than what the senior leadership team, which like we will probably be referring to in this podcast as the SLT, But the senior leadership team and like other decision makers are choosing something that I would not be choosing if I was thinking of sustainability in terms of further enrollment and attracting students to the college. How could you possibly expect someone to advocate for Ithaca and like send their own children there if they're an alum or a community member, if they're seeing these problems with the institution and then developing mistrust in a place that they had maybe previously loved or at least believed was going to have a future?
Yeah, and we've actually talked to some prospective parents, and they have not been too keen on Ithaca. I've seen some testimonies. I saw one today on our alumni partners Facebook group. I see alumni against austerity, um, saying like, I've decided to take Ithaca College off my child's admissions list just because they're not being a good college. They're not being a model for sustainability even. And they're not being truthful, and parents are confused. I think current parents are really confused too. But it's ultimately going to be really detrimental to us.
So I know that you just mentioned austerity, and I remember seeing a bunch of pictures of writing, and I know that there was a protest, and I heard a lot of the speeches about that. So can you tell me a little bit about that word and what it means to IC Open the Books?
Yeah, I mean, when our art demo blew up, so to speak, um, we got a lot of questions like, what is austerity? What does that mean? Um, and I think it's a really great word for our movement. I don't think we need to necessarily like, we don't need to use it in the definition of like the economic theory per se. But like for us, it means this like top down power structure where like power is consolidated at the top and they're not being transparent. They're also, the fact that they're like letting go a bunch of professors and staff is austerity. And yeah, I think it gets thrown around a lot. And it kind of has a more like uh it has like the like economic theory definition, and then like also the definition of being like, you know, non-transparent and not, and like, what's the word, for lack of a better term, lying. But yeah, it's in our lexicon for it's our, and it's in our open the books dictionary of words and stuff.
I don't mean to backtrack, but can you guys give us an introduction about what IC Open the Books is, and what does the name actually mean? Like, can you explain that to us?
Yeah. So we can even just start by explaining the name. Open the Books was initially a call to open the financial books of Ithaca College, meaning actually make some of this financial information public so that we were not only just looking for transparency, but wanting to be involved in the conversation before these, as we're calling them, austerity measures. In this case, like we can just consider them like extreme measures were being taken to cut costs. And so we were initially asking for transparency and shared governance in this. Like we wanted a seat at the table. And we being the coalition of students, faculty, staff members, community members, really just like anyone who is invested in this college and who is part of this greater community, calling for justice in these decision-making processes and wanting to know like, okay, how did you arrive at this decision that seems so extreme to us? What, what is the actual financial situation? And also like, where are these different things? Like there were ideas of like an endowment being thrown around. There were questions about like administrative costs as well and different consultants being brought in. And we just wanted a way to have the truth there, and be able to draw our own conclusions from it.
Totally. And yeah, we kind of came together out of support for the faculty members, each of us kind of like individually reaching out to some faculty members that we really felt close to and that were also vocally in opposition. A lot of the members of the contingent faculty union we work really closely with. And they've been so amazing. Like, they are our mentors. They are like kind of the reason we became a thing. So many thanks to them. But yeah, we are now, how many people do we have in the Slack? Like 100 and something?
Oh my God, I
we're
don't
getting
even know.
big.
And
I
like
know.
that's separate from the alumni, and like those are just
Yeah.
the people who are like active on Slack. It's not even
Yeah.
considering like all these different people who are involved in the coalition in some way. But that's really been a beautiful thing, is seeing this movement grow from just like a couple. I don't even know, like initially, I don't even remember how I got into the meeting, but there was like a contingent faculty meeting that maybe Patricia had invited me to. And Patricia Rodriguez is one of the politics professors at IC who I've taken many classes with, and she's a mentor in my life. So I had gone to like see what all of this was about and support my professors. And this was, I mean, I guess at some point in the fall.
Yeah, I think it was September.
Yeah, it was like right in the beginning of the semester, mid-semester. And that was when we first kind of like were getting wind of this looming like faculty cut coming. And it's just grown so much since then. Like, this is something that's on national news. This is something that like huge networks of alumni, not just from like recent years, but from like 30, 40 years, like people who go way back, and all of their connections and donors. And it's been really, really beautiful to see like how our connections with just like one place and special experiences with certain professors have all led us to this place of trying to advocate for the future of our institution.
I agree that it is beautiful to see that, but it's also unfortunate that it ever had to happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Those professors are the people who really shape our college experiences, and without them it would be very, very different. So I think it's great that people are coming together to stand up for what we think is right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us came to IC for the professors, to be honest. At least I did. And I've talked to a lot of people who have had that shared experience. You know, what would we do without them? Nothing.
I had never even heard of Ithaca College before. My cousin, like third cousin or whatever, ended up coming here like 20 years ago. And so my dad knew about it, and he's like, I booked a plane ticket. We're going from Chicago to New York. Let's go, like, research this school. And so I came here and I was like, I'm not going to like this place. Like, I've never heard of it. Like, I've heard of Cornell, never heard of Ithaca College. And then I ended up talking to one of my professors in the ENBS department, and she changed my whole perspective. She is such an amazing person, and she was actually in jeopardy of being cut, and that's when it really took to me, where I was like, if this happens, this is, oh my God. Even the people who I'm part of 3 departments. One of them is one of the ones that is getting cut altogether, the RLS department. And and so all those professors that I've had, and they're all leaving, only one of them is tenured. And so hopefully they find a place for him if what they're saying as of now is accurate and truthful. But I still don't know who the person in in the bio department is that might be losing their job as well, which brings me to another question. There is a document, and I was wondering, sorry, my laptop is going off. And I was wondering, it was supposed to be originally the final draft when it came out. It was supposed to be, I thought it was March 1st, and
I was just told recently that it has been moved to February 27th. So I was just wondering if you knew when the shape of the college document like deadline is, like the actual full deadline.
Well, they actually just released their like official recommendations today. Um, it's honestly been a really confusing process because they keep giving us different dates, and we're like, it was February 24th, it was March 1st. I guess now it's February 27th. I can't keep track of it. Um, but when it originally came out, it was supposed to go through like pretty substantial levels of review um, in faculty and everyone involved in the college, not as students, because, you know, we don't get smart economics things like that apparently. But yeah, it's confusing. And I guess it's, Lauren, do you know the official date?
Well,
I should have a commission.
I was originally wondering just
Yeah.
because I was part of the outdoor pursuits minor for the RLS department, and we were trying to get together a bunch of students to write letters to the administration. And we were going to have a bunch of waves of them, and the last wave was February 27th. And then we just got an email today saying like, oh, if you try doing it by the 27th, it's too late. And so I also like just remember they were supposed to have the first draft that came out with the original like what their plan was, and it wasn't supposed to be final. Yet I found out a day before the people who were like recommended to be cut. The day before the draft even came out, and that's supposed to be a draft, it's not supposed to be final. One of my professors in the ENVS department got a call saying that they were going to be let go. So why are you saying that this is a draft and it's just recommended, and then you're calling these people and telling them that their lives are being destroyed, basically?
Yeah, so we had the same thought process. The shape of the college draft came out. We were like, this sucks, let's fight it. And then literally the next day, like, I don't even know how many, but a few of our professors that we work with were like, I'm getting fired, turns out, which we did not expect. And it's a lot of contingent faculty, which sucks because the contingent faculty have such amazing relationships with the students. It's, and then today, you know, the final draft came out and everyone was so confused and alarmed, and they're cutting so many important parts of the school. I mean, like, we were literally a music conservatory, and they're getting rid of all of the music education master's programs, which makes no sense. There's a lot more, there's so much in there, but
They're also
yeah,
sorry, you can keep going.
I was just gonna
say
oh, yeah. No, don't worry.
Well, I was just gonna say that there is about, like, at the draft, at least, I'm not sure, I haven't seen the final document that was put out today apparently, but there was 116 faculty like full-time positions, and that's just full-time. In ENVS department there were 3 people that aren't full-time that got cut as well. But then there's also like, they recommended that there's like 26 like major program and department discontinuations, and like in a school that's the size of like 1/8 of other schools, it's I think 6,000 kids now, but now it's down to like 5,000 students, and now they're cutting over 100 faculty positions that are full-time, let alone the other people that aren't included in the 116. Like, how do you get rid of that many programs and like
just expect there to not be any backlash from that.
Yeah, I think that's like for me where it all comes back to this concept of longevity and sustainability of the institution. Like, how can we be seeing these figures of enrollment dropping like crazy in comparison to other institutions that are like comparable to IC in terms of like size or the type of institution? Um, like, why are we seeing these issues that are popping up at our school, but not at these other places? And this is like where the worry is. If we're in this enrollment crisis and there's an anticipated enrollment cliff that the senior leadership team keeps on talking about, how could this possibly be making things better? And like that is like where we are not receiving answers for any of this. And that's the most upsetting part, is that like there's not a conversation going on. And if there was an open dialogue, maybe things would be a bit different and we wouldn't have gotten to this point of escalation. But unfortunately, that's what's going on. And that's what, like, if anything speaks volumes about Ithaca College right now, it's not this Ithaca Forever plan. It's the amount of people who are organizing and investing in this institution that they care about. And it's this connection, like IC has something special that is not to be denied. And there are lots of problems with it. There always have been and there always will be because it's an institution. But we're all trying to move towards a place where we will be in a comfortable position to be able to expand our institution and to be able to know that, okay, like, yeah, there will be an Ithaca in 10 years. Like, maybe there won't be an Ithaca forever, but I'd like to know that my investment in coming to this college wasn't a mistake. And up until, I don't know, like the whole beginning of this process and the handling of like COVID at this institution, there was not a second when I wouldn't have recommended Ithaca College, specifically the politics department and my own experience at IC, to anyone. I was constantly telling people about this place. And now I don't even feel comfortable telling another like prospective politics student, yes, you should come to IC, because I don't know if those beloved professors are even going to be there for them. And that's not okay. That's not a way that our institution is going to continue.
You have to wonder too, if when people start coming back and we have all of our students and hopefully the pandemic we're past all of that, what's going to happen to the staff then? Are they just going to hire all new staff members? Are they going to bring back the people that have been here and been teaching students for forever? But I have a question for you guys. If the pandemic did not occur, would these layoffs still have happened?
That's kind of a golden question. I mean, it was originally if you remember, like, to the olden days, the pre-pandemic days,
a good time.
The good old days, 10 million years ago, whatever. They were planning this whole like Ithaca Forever project, and that did include faculty and staff layoffs. They've kind of like flip-flopped in between reasonings for these layoffs. A lot of it's about this resizing, because they have claimed that enrollment from 2008 to 2018 went like drastically down, but the graph shows that it's actually gone up. Very confusing. Also, there is a steep drop in 2019 to 2020, but that's COVID-19, or whatever, that little thing that definitely didn't shake the ground we live in. But so I guess part of our like call to action is figuring out truly why this is so integral to the like survival of our school, because we do not see a lot of reasons that it would be. And there is a lot of information that we do not know. Like, these faculty cuts are not going to cover this financial deficit that we are in. So what is going to be like the remedy to this situation? Like, are we just going to keep firing faculty until like this, deficit is fixed, which I don't think is reasonable.
It seems like a band-aid on a bullet wound.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like, there are some like deeper systematic problems about Ithaca College and its like sustainability that have been a problem like since before President Collado, like into Chalmers Sean's time. And Ithaca College has historically taken a side of austerity and non-transparency financially. So the problem is we don't have a lot of context for these cuts because there's so much hidden information. We do not know how much the senior leadership team is making. They have not released their salaries and they're probably not going to do it until they legally have to, which really sucks because, I mean, it literally says on our website that one of our like core tenets is holding people accountable and accountability. Show me how much you're making, then we'll talk. There's just been a lot of like half truths and smoke screens and just closed doors that should be open. And the Ithaca community, I mean, all of us really want to be involved, I think. Like, I mean, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't want to be involved. And it's just so unnerving that they would keep us out like that and just like make us feel so othered in the situation.
And I think just to
Sarah-
like speak a little bit, oh sorry.
No, you're good.
Just to speak a little bit to like the metaphor of a band-aid over a bullet wound, like my question is, why is there a bullet wound in the first place?
Yeah.
You know, like let's go back to the root of the issue and address things there, because at this point, like trying to manage costs in this way is obviously not addressing what the core issue is, but we don't really have any way of knowing what the core issue is. I have my guesses, certainly, but you know, and it's complicated, and I'm not going to pretend to understand that, but I would like to be a part of the conversation. I would like to feel welcomed into this so that I know that I didn't just make an investment of 3 years of my life and God knows how much money, and literally like all of my relationships. I chose Ithaca College. I made a decision, I made an investment. And that's the thing, is like the college is providing us with a service in which like we can carry our degree into our career field. But what happens for students whose degree is super undervalued now? And I think like it's just all going back to these questions of why is this even happening in the first place?
Sarah, you mentioned something interesting earlier about parents taking away the responsibility or taking away the ability to even come to Ithaca College. And I think that's really important. And Lauren, you kind of covered this too, as you want to feel like you have that position at the table. And Ithaca needs to realize that, you know, its internal stakeholders is the backbone of the institution. They need to realize that the students, the parents, and the faculty is what really builds the institution, while the institution is still there today. And they don't realize that, you know, when we talk about endowments, when we talk about money, you know, if students weren't going to Ithaca College, then there wouldn't be any faculty. And if there was no faculty at Ithaca College, then there wouldn't be any students. So that kind of takes me to a question of how will such layoffs affect the quality of our degrees? Because as you see, like degrees are starting to get more competitive. You know, I think Lauren, we were talking about this in one of our classes.
Yeah.
The school really only cares about one of the schools that the school only really cares about is the Park School. And that's sad. Like, you know, if you're in the Park School, you get so much opportunity and so much open doors, but a student that might be in the School of Humanities and Science might not get those opportunities. They might not get those looks. And, you know, that's kind of sad when you think of it, because now that programs are being completely tarnished, or they don't exist anymore, where does that leave other programs? Like, you know, will students feel comfortable even staying within those programs? Or, you know, there's just so many questions that, you know, that come up to attack.
Yeah.
But
No, it's true. I mean, I think like there's been some drama with the anthro department, and I solidly for like 3 days was like, I'm gonna transfer to Cornell. I know that's a hard school to get into, but anyways, I didn't. Maybe I still will, joking. But yeah, I think that's a question that everyone has. Like, how is my department going to function? Am I going to get the same quality of education? A lot of people have been worried about like the legitimacy of their degree post grad, like going into grad school, which is a serious concern that I share and many people share. And yeah, I guess like with these reductions, there is going to be a lot more work for individual professors. A lot more like, teaching of intro classes. And I mean, it even threatens research, like for a lot of us in H&S, Anthro, ENBS, politics even, I'm sure has research, and these opportunities are so integral for like our future, putting it on our resumes, because academia do that sometimes, need things to do that are cool. But it's gonna like really put a lot of stress on kind of the structure that we have right now. And I think it kind of sucks because we don't really know what it's gonna look like. It's gonna make things worse. I know that for sure. Especially for professors and workloads, and they do so much already. I mean, these professors that we work with, they're teaching classes and also like simultaneously like helping us lead a coalition. It's they do so much, and there's so much unknown. It's scary.
One thing that I kind of feel I need to say, like, it's kind of along the lines of what Lauren was talking about, how I used to always like say like, come to Ithaca, it's the greatest place in the world, oh my gosh, Apple Fest, the greatest thing about the town. But I've been recently asked a couple of times to talk to accepted students because we're not getting as many, and supposedly, and I think what's really gotten me to do this, like to tell people to come to Ithaca despite all of the problems it's having, is that like my professors are asking me to do this, and like I'd do anything for them. I feel like they're worried if they don't get enough students in their department that it'll be cut. So I'm just like focused more on the like, I'm doing this for my professors, not for the administration, not to do this, but to like stop the bad stuff from happening, stop the cuts that are probably in the future again. It's just scary.
These schools and departments have had to become kind of like their own independent like states in a way, like fending for themselves, which is super not fair because that's literally the admin's job to be like supporting the entire school, which is obviously not happening. And I can't imagine the stress that they're under trying to literally save their departments individually.
I also feel like if they were to give us a seat at the table, like Lauren was talking about before, like give us a voice, like we're not asking them to open their finances, open the books because we want to get more mad. Like we want to help them. And I swear, like I might not be an administrative person, and like I don't know much about money, but I do as a student see, and as an employee here, see that there are so many things that the school just wastes money on, that I could just be like, yo, if you don't do this, if you don't spend money wasted on this, then you'd save a lot of money over the years. Like, just stop doing things that are dumb.
Honestly, yes. That's it. Stop being dumb. That's it.
Sarah and Lauren, so with everything that we just tackled, is it's clear that it won't be an easy process. But who do you think will be able to, stop this process? If you were to specifically name a group, or, not name a group, but who do you think will be able to stop this process? If you could, you know.
That is a good question.
I
Hopefully,
think
yes.
like my impression of it, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Mhm.
at this point, like the stage that we're in right now is the APPIC, which that's the academic prioritization program
Process.
prioritization.
It's
Yeah. And then
something like
the
that.
IC is the implementation committee. So this is headed by, I believe, Provost Cornish, and a couple different like faculty members and deans, and some different leaders from around the school. It was in their hands to draft the shape of the college document. And then they are proposing it to the senior leadership team, which is the admin, like President Collado and the different vice presidents and provosts. And then I don't know if it simultaneously they are proposing it to the Board of Trustees or if that's a separate process. But as far as I understand, the senior leadership team and the Board of Trustees now has this decision in their lap and they have the ability to stop it completely or slow it down and make these like final executive decisions, and yet they are kind of nowhere to be accessed.
Yeah, and unfortunately, our school is such a like solid top-down bureaucratic structure that there are so many like levels you have to go through to like be a part of this, which sucks. Especially because at Open the Books, we are really trying to emphasize like the power of a spread out power structure and how we are super anti like power consolidated at the top, because that historically does not end up good, for the people who are getting the who are facing the results of these decisions made by the people in power. And yeah, it's it's a really confusing issue, and it's kind of terrible, to say the least.
Lauren, what do you think some of the alternatives might be for APP?
I think most of my knowledge of the alternatives are coming from a really fantastic presentation that we had at an Open the Books meeting much further back by an organizer from Hampshire College. In like to preface this, basically the guest that we had from Hampshire College was sharing what their college had done in a different situation, but they were facing like similar huge faculty cuts and possibly like the closing of their institution. And they're a much smaller college than we are, who have much different resources, and it's just overall a different institution. However, they were able to organize, instead of cutting of faculty positions, they were able to take into their own hands as like a faculty community, take different like levels of pay cuts. So on like a percentage level, basically say like Sarah and I are both professors at IC, and I am much newer in my career and Sarah is closer to retirement. So we would have a conversation of like, hey, Sarah, is this within your financial situation that you could possibly retire a couple years early and get a much better severance package, and have the ability to like maybe go on sabbatical, continue your research, and then retire early. So then me as like a younger professor or a professor who's like newer into academia has the ability to continue their career. And basically Hampshire College was able to structure these these like consensual and community-based cut of costs and save their school, not only from like their situation of the school possibly closing, but then it was hit by COVID. So this was actually before COVID happened. Um, and they were able to do this fantastic organizing, but they had to take it out of the context of the bureaucracy, and they fought for so long. They were like occupying the president's office, I think for 75 days or something, right?
Yeah.
75 days.
70 days,
Which
something
is
like that.
wild, and it's something that we obviously can't do during COVID, but we are trying. Like, no one should have to be doing this in the first place.
Yeah.
We're all investing in this institution. We are this institution. And I think like the alternatives are coming from, one, we need to know what is going on with the financial situation. We need an accurate assessment of our different like endowments and donor resources, and then also enrollment. We need accurate numbers for all of these things. And unfortunately, like Open the Books has had to do their own research and try and piece together all this information. Um, but there are so many alternatives, and we're not being allowed into the conversation. And that's what the issue is the people who are making these decisions are not drawing upon the incredible minds that I see both here at the college and within the community itself. You know, there is an idea like, yes, we can bring in consultants for business matters in a more corporate model, or we can use the people who are already here at our institution who are much more familiar with the individual situation and the needs of the community, and definitely have a much bigger investment. Like if you've worked here for 20 years, you're going to have a far different investment than a consultant who has never even been to Ithaca and who is unable to travel to Ithaca because of the pandemic. So I think like for me, it's just reminding myself, and like Tyler, you know, from like politics classes, that like we're always learning about the alternatives to these different like forms of organizing, and you just kind of have to have this radical hope and push back against these immediate decisions and people who will tell you, oh, there is no alternative, the APP process has been going on for a long period of time, there's no way to stop it now. But I think it's so important just to insist on the fact, no, like there is obviously a problem if 78% of the faculty surveyed disapprove of this process, and if there is such a public outcry that we are having to organize an entire movement. There are alternatives, and there are plenty of people who would be more than happy to invest in brainstorming those things and putting them into action.
At the beginning of this lovely speech you just gave, you mentioned storming the president's office, and I'd just like to go back to that. Obviously we can't go and talk to the president all at once, but I do hear that she has office hours, and I was just wondering, is that actually a thing? Because I've talked to some of my professors who they have meetings with the deans and like all that for hours, and they're like trying to say like, oh, we're going to talk to you guys, and we're going to listen to you, and we're going to try like figuring out a problem together. Like they're like, we're giving you the seat you're asking for. But then when they ask the questions, they dodge them. They're robotic. They say the same thing over and over again. And I was just wondering, when it's office hours, is President Collado doing the exact same thing, or is it actually helpful?
So this has been kind of a saga, but office hours, for one thing, they get booked up like super fast. And we have been trying to set up a meeting with President Collado. Many emails have been sent, and then we finally said, because the problem is that we want the meeting to be structured in a way where one side doesn't have a certain bias, not a bias, like a advantage, like the power advantage. And by the admin controlling the Zoom, they have this ability to mute us. They have this ability to control the conversation. And we don't want that conversation to be controlled. If you think back to the SGC town hall, you know, that was a very controlled conversation. Um, and it has been a lot of emails and a lot of questions to the admin about why they won't just come to the conversations we invite them to, um, and why they won't show up to these hard conversations and have these uncomfortable discussions with us. And we have gotten not a lot of answers at all. It's something we complain about a lot in our Slack. But yes, we're trying to set up some sort of meeting, and the town hall, as Lauren mentioned in the chat, that's occurring right now, they are invited to literally all of our events, and they never come. And we want them to reach out to us, and we really stand by this idea of like the power imbalance that is created in this situation. Um, it is really unfair for them to be in control while we are kind of at their mercy at what they can give us, what they decide the conversation is going to be, because this is a pre-scripted conversation no matter what if they are in control. And us being the students who inherently have less control in this institution, I think it is fair for us to want to compensate with that by having a little more control over the discussion, especially as we are kind of leading the way right now in the critiques and in the outcry. And we've been trying to, make this a fair conversation, and they are not responding, which is really disappointing, especially for a school that prides itself on, accountability and a holistic viewpoint, as they keep saying. This is not holistic. This is centered in the admin, and it is trying to stay in the admin.
Yeah, and I think beyond it just being an imbalance of power, it's also just unproductive, right? Because like if you are just having a conversation with people, with like-minded individuals, you're going to come to similar conclusions. However, if you're looking, I am sure initially no one wanted to cut this many faculty and gut our college and take away all these programs. I'm sure that was no one's first choice. And you know what? Even if it was, I will maintain hope that no one wants to ruin this college. However, just like again to assert it, like you can't be expecting to come up with alternatives if you are only centering the same voices. And that is something that like Ithaca College will advertise, that they are student centered, that they are taking a nimble approach to all of these things. And this is, this is the language that they are using in all of these like marketing terms and things like that. And yet we have like these terms are laughable to us because we have yet to see any of these things actually being applied into action and like reaching across these different like barriers and these different groups and stuff. They are very, very easy. We are easily accessible as students, as faculty, as a movement. They're the ones, the senior leadership team are the ones who are very inaccessible to us. And it's important to understand like why are they inaccessible? Who is benefiting from our voices not being part of this conversation? And like really, really assessing, is this the most appropriate decision making? In my mind, it's not.
Lauren, with that being said, we are as a student body accessible. We have a lot of newly faces on campus now that people are back on campus. We have a lot of new freshmen, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of freshmen, even sophomores even, that are unaware that this is happening at the institution. So my last question for you today is, you, Lauren, and Sarah, is how do we get students involved? How could we get them more involved? How could we make this, more aware and clear to freshmen and sophomores or even juniors that might be unaware? Because even me, I'm a junior. I didn't find out about this until recently. I seen it on an Instagram post, and it just stabbed me in the heart because this is exactly the memes this is the institution that, like you said, I go to. I will hope the best for everybody, because that's how I am. I want the best for everybody. So, back to the question, how do we get students involved? How can they help? Who can they contact? That's another issue. It's not knowing, who to contact, who to go to, because you can't just send an email to the president. You can't just send the email to the board of trustees. To even get a meeting with the board of trustees is almost impossible. I remember trying to bring Greek life to campus. They they didn't want to talk to me at all. It was like as if I wasn't a student. So yep.
Yeah, you can we are always looking for more people. I mean, we ultimately want this to be literally for everyone. Um and you can follow us on Instagram at IC Open the Books. You can always DM us. It's usually me DMing people back. Sometimes it's the other people. Um and we have meetings every Tuesday on Zoom at 7 p.m. where we plan, we brainstorm, we chat about everything that is happening. It's kind of nice because it's like a little therapy session, but also with action. Um, and yeah, we always have events coming up. That we always put out on our Instagram. And you can also go like our Facebook page at IC Students for Labor Action. Go like the alumni Facebook page, which is IC Alumni Against Austerity. What else is there? What else do we have? You can email us at studentsforlaboraction@gmail.com. We are always looking for people to join. We are literally an open book, one could say. Oop, too on the nose, maybe.
I think also one really good thing that Sarah, let me know if this is actually on the Instagram. I know it's on our Slack, but you know, the flyer that we were passing out after our last demonstration, that has a QR code to email the Board of Trustees, and also has a script for calling the office of the president. And those are two like really quickly actionable things that are just on this graphic right away. And that's something that you could do in like half an hour. You could do both of those things maybe in like 10 minutes, not even, depending on how long you want to rant. But there's lots of different ways to get involved. The strength of something like Open the Books is not taking no for an answer. And this is something that grows every single day, with more people finding out about it, maybe through this podcast, even through conversations happening in your classes. I don't know for y'all if this has been true, but we are talking about this in every single one of my classes. And the amount of class time spent just talking about the APP and the effects on professors, on students, it's simultaneously very validating, but also so frustrating that we are using up our class time, our very valuable time with these professors, and we're using it to talk about like whether or not they're going to be here. That's unacceptable to me. So I think like if you want to get in contact with these people, if you want to be a participant in this action, tune in to the social media accounts, but also have conversations in your classes. Let your professors know that you're supporting them in this, because honestly, like, they're people too, and they need to know that you care about them and that they are valued, as their probably entire careers are up in the air right now. But then we also need to build solidarity among other students too, and let them know, let alumni know, let prospective students know, talk to your parents about it, and like guardians and whoever is like was helpful in your college decision-making process. My big push is to get those people involved as well, because it seems like the college does respond to different voices in quite distinct manners. So so maybe if they're not listening to students and faculty, the alumni have been really powerful, and it's time to get parents involved too. So yeah, just mobilize across all different channels if you can.
Thank you. Thank you guys for joining us today in our podcast. You basically covered everything that, we needed to talk about today. I hope to have you guys on the next episode or future episodes. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you so much for having us. This is so much fun. And I think hopefully it'll be a really good resource for people to get more information and just maybe like get a little bit of community about all this.
And if you have any questions about IC Open the Books, just text Lauren at
You know,
fill in the blank.
Drop a pin. Just drop a pin.
We're not there quite yet. Maybe we should make a Ithaca Open the Books
like a text
phone number.
Yeah.
Wait, that's actually
867-5309.
A hotline. I'll call that hotline.
Where'd that come from?
It's from the song 867-5309. You don't know that song?
It's an old song.
Dude, that's a famous. That is a famous song, Sarah.
Well, maybe I just didn't know those are the
thing.
numbers.
That might be a Chicago thing.
No, it is not. It is one of the most famous songs.
Oh yeah, it's famous. It plays in Rogan's like all the time.
And if it plays in Rogan's, you know it's famous.
That's what I'm saying.
This was super fun, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining Eco Reps in this. And I'm always so excited to like bring in our own personal lives in Eco Reps and like how we're doing our own activism, and then involving other students and framing it in the context of like, what does sustainability actually mean? It's not just about not using plastic straws.
Totally. I mean, it's been so cool. And I've always been interested in what the Eco Reps are doing because obviously as an ENVS student, I'm like, oh, sustainability, that's cool. I don't want the world to die, surprisingly. But yeah, so it's fun meeting all of you and thanks for having me.